less than $15 an hour. Join us for living wage. Join us.
On the bucket so deep you just might lose it. Groove steady, flow like confetti. Straight from the hottest beat stomping music. It feels so smooth you slip right through it. The bucket so deep you just might lose it.
Of BC, happy May Day from the 450,000 members of the BC Federation of Labor. Thank you for being here to celebrate our work, our unions, our struggles, our successes, our active and progressive and wonderful labor movement in BC. You know, we have a big challenge, a really big challenge, and that is poverty and inequality. I know that some of you will have seen the Oxfam statistic that came out about a month ago. Oxfam did this analysis where they took the collective wealth of the richest 85 people in the world. And that collective wealth is equal to the wealth of the poorest 3.5 billion people in the world.
Shame.
It was a startling statistic for me, an unbelievable one, and it's an indication of this growing gap between rich and poor that we are facing in our world. I think it is the greatest challenge of our time, and a challenge that we as workers, as unions, have to fight and have to be determined to reduce that gap between rich and poor. And there are two things I'm going to tell you about that reduce that gap between rich and poor, and one is unions. One is unions. And it's an amazing thing. When the rate of unionization goes up, the gap between rich and poor goes down. And so, yes, at the Fed, we fight for union workers and non-union workers, for all workers in this province. But we want more people in unions. And we have to be determined to organize in this province, to organize until we have the kinds of rates of unionization that Sweden has. Let's go for 80%. I'd go for 100%, but you know, there's those little things out there that, yeah, but 80% is good. That should be our target in terms of unionization. Number two for fighting that gap is fair taxation. And that has to be something that we have to be determined to have in this province, in this country. Because when we have fair taxation, we have the revenue for public services. We have the revenue to look after each other, as we should, for a good quality public education system, for good health care, for good social services, where we look after the most vulnerable in our society. So we should be determined in our fight for a fair taxation system. You know, we're winning a few battles. Last week, the government backed down on the temporary foreign worker program. And, you know, we want workers to come from other countries to work in this province. They have forever. For 160 years, workers have come from other countries to work here. And they have produced in our province a wonderful, multicultural, progressive society where we live together mostly in harmony. We haven't eliminated racism, but we've come close to that in British Columbia most days, for most people. We've done a good job of living together here in BC. We want workers to come, but we don't want them to come temporarily, have their rights abused, and then they get sent home. We want those workers to have the rights of all workers to come, to settle in our community, and to build our beautiful province. So it's a good thing that the government backed down at least a little bit on that temporary foreign worker program. Last week was the anniversary of the collapse of the Rana Plaza in Bangladesh. And that's another thing I want to mention today on this International Workers' Day, because our fight is not just for British Columbia, it's not just for Canada, it's for the whole world. When we fight for better wages and benefits for our members and for all workers in BC and for a higher minimum wage, and our workers here go out and buy clothes, we want to know that those clothes were produced by workers who had rights too, who didn't risk their lives to produce those clothes, who had good wages and good benefits. And so we have to be determined that our fight for workers' rights is a global fight. And we have to remember that and remember these events. And get these companies to sign the accord on fire and building safety in Bangladesh. There's only one company in Canada that has signed that accord, and that's Loblaws. No other retailer of clothing in Canada has signed that accord, and that's a shameful statistic, where a number of American companies have and a number of British companies have, and European companies. So that's a fight that we have to keep up until all workers in the world have good rights and safe and healthy working conditions. You know, right-wing governments, corporations, they have a lot of power. They have a lot of money. And they're working to fight against unions. And IKEA is a perfect example of a big, rich corporation trying to bust a union. But we have greater power. We have each other. We have the knowledge that together we're incredibly strong. As long as we stick together and keep our focus on the rights of workers and human rights, we can't be defeated. We have our persistence and our determination, because we are never giving up the struggle for workers' rights, for a fair and just society. Happy May Day. Let's keep up that struggle.
We are the Ground Partisans, and we are happy and proud to be here with you today on International Workers' Day. Today we remember those people that we stand beside today, but all those others around the world who are fighting for the fair and just world for all that we dream about. And people like Woody Guthrie, who are no longer with us, but whose voice is still alive. Woody wrote a song about Tom Joad and the story of the Grapes of Wrath, a book published about 75 years ago. And our first song here remembers him and his voice, and it's called I Still Can Hear Him Now. 1, 2, 3, 4. It was just sitting there right on the table when we all woke up. Right beside the typewriter, 17 verses and a half-empty coffee cup. He was passed out, curled up on the floor. Most of the wine was gone. Must have found his way to the heart of the story sometime after 1. Now he's still here, right up front, staring us straight in the eye. Still ready to go a good 10 rounds against the toughest guy. He don't punch even though he can. He sings his fight out loud. He'll never quit, and though he's dead, I still can hear him now. And I can hear him. I can hear him. I can hear him. I can hear him. I can hear him sing out loud. I can hear him. I can hear him. I can hear him. I can hear him. I still can hear him now. Well, the record man wanted one about Tom Joad refugee did his own